Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I am back with another energetically channeled celebrity video. Now this particular person hit people hard when they found out that he passed on July 20th of 2025. And it hit them in a way because it came out of left field. He was a relatively young man, 54 years old, and I'm talking about Malcolm Jamal Warner, who passed away suddenly from drowning, so it is reported, in Costa Rica while on a family vacation, I believe with his wife and his daughter. So I look at the chart, of course, and then I start to feel the energy. So let's start with the chart. Malcolm was born on August 18th of 1970 at 2:43 a.m. in Jersey City, New Jersey. A fellow Leo, and he certainly looked like a Leo. When he walked in a room, he had presence, and he has that big, bright, happy, masculine, beautiful Leo face. Leo men are really attractive, and you can kind of tell them when they walk in a room because even if they're understated type, they shine and usually have a really lovely smile. So he had his sun in Leo and it was conjunct Mars. So conjunctions in a natal chart mean married planets, okay? They're married, just like a marriage. They can be for good or bad. Just think of marriage. But when the Mars is in Leo, the masculine self-expression, because we're looking to the sun and Mars as the male's way of expressing himself. And if Mars is in a different sign, then it textures the expression of the sun, if you will. So he had Mars and sun in Leo. So that's a pretty authentic expression. Creatively kind, focused on moving forward, and basically expression of self, just in a very basic way. Now, karmically speaking, he had Sun and Mars squaring Saturn. Sun and Mars squaring Saturn. So the whole essence of who he was as a man was being thwarted from a senior energy around him. Now, this does not have to be a family member, can be a grandfather. It actually can be a grandfather, and the belief systems of the older Saturnian person in the family. So that would be grandfather, and I believe on mother's side is actually what I picked up, but grandfather energy, and especially when Saturn is in Taurus. Foundationally, Taurus comes in this world to acquire and build. So when you have Saturn in Taurus, so you have like a double earth energy there, you have somebody who's very fixated karmically on building and security. At least that's what was handed down to him. Now, when it squares, so squaring is a fighting aspect. So when it squares your masculine energy, Sun and Mars, them are fighting words. Okay. So there's like a fighting type of energy. Now, when I look at Malcolm's moon sign, this is what made me laugh. It didn't really make me laugh, but kind of did make me laugh because he has moon in Pisces. First of all, extremely musical, extremely poetic, extremely can be addicted if it chooses, and extremely ethereal. So preferring to visually see the world through the context of romanticized vision. I might put it that way. Practicality, not so much. Look, we are getting blurry again. This has been happening for 2 days. I've been trying to film this. So I'm just going to do this and leave it in while it's there. So finally, and I'm going to say this, I tried to film this 4 times. Every single time I did it, the film was like weirdly ruined where I couldn't use it. Like I couldn't even splice it together. It was just weird. So I think he was coming in to kind of point me in the correct direction of what I needed to say. That sometimes happens. And I know people say things about the camera. I'm not moving. I'm right here. So I'm not doing anything, and it's not on autofocus. So it's none of that. It just happens. They step in front of the camera. That's an energetic thing. Remember, when people cross over, frequency-wise, they have to hook into something that we can relate to. And a lot of times it's electrical because vibrations are electrical. That's kind of the way that is. So back to Malcolm's chart. So he has moon in Pisces, which is super lovely, super, super lovely. And Mercury in Virgo. And that is very interesting because on an emotional level, he chooses to see the world one way. On a logical level, he sees it like a Virgo. So he breaks down the romantic, emotional feelings into logical practicality, which is actually really good for any kind of creative person, whether making films, being in films, creating a character, creating something on their own, just being creative, because it takes them right out of the etheric into the practical, but allows the dialogue internally to go back and forth, which is amazing. That's very creative. So it's very easy for this person to go over here and build a really beautiful vision of something and then bring it into practical application. I like that. I mean, that's a really intelligent way to be, and very, very good. Now, he had Venus in Libra. Yes, that can be difficult because it's chaos causing. I know we've been told things about Libra, that they're balanced and this and that. Hear my sarcasm. The reason that they focus on balance is because they're chaotic. Okay, there, I said it. Don't come for me. He was a Cancer rising. Now, this hit me really strong. He had 2 T-squares. So he was Uranus ascendant, Chiron, and that Venus in a T-square, Saturn, Sun, and Neptune in a T-square. So there were a lot of issues he was fighting that were not necessarily his, handed on down through the gene pool, if you will. Now, he also had Mercury conjunct Pluto. This is an outstanding aspect and a BS detector. So when Mercury and Pluto are conjunct, again, married, the planet Pluto, this does not allow anything to uproot it. It will take you down and flash firebomb you before you're going to get a word in edgewise. So when we have Mercury, the way that we think, and Pluto together, this brings about, I'm going to say it, mediumship. So the understanding of the energy behind the energy. This brings about perception with radar accuracy. So this man was not somebody who was easily fooled, but could give the impression with a Cancer rising and a Pisces moon that he could be fooled. So there's something there when you look at him, maybe a little bit silent behind the scenes and then come in and speak type of energy. The T-squares are interesting because these are things he was fighting throughout his whole life. Anybody with a T-square is fighting these energies that involve those planets. So Saturn, Sun, and Neptune, these can be very difficult on a person's psyche because, again, the Neptune aspect always brings in illusion and disillusionment, and it can be problematic for the person because they don't understand what the heck's going on, and that has always been an issue. And since Saturn is squaring the Sun and Neptune, personally, Neptune square the Sun is horrific because you do not see, and it's square the Sun, men, square the men in your life, father figures, boyfriends, brothers, best friends, male doctors, whoever. You don't see them clearly. Neptune puts rosy colored glasses on you and like throws you out in some non-realistic world. So he had all of these things he was dealing with, and the Saturn part of it is the karma from a past life into this life. I believe through the mother's side of the family, through the mother's grandfather. So maternal grandfather. That's where I believe that it was filtering in through. Okay, so let's get to the psychic part of the reading. Now, this I found really interesting because I don't really pick up usually energies that are this descriptive in describing. So let me tell you what I got. Initially, when Malcolm passed, I am drawn right into almost a room that is as big as me, okay, square, like a box, and my mind goes to the early 1920s. Do you guys remember the way they used to take photographs? And no, I'm not that old. I just remember seeing it in books where the photographer would stand like with something over his head, looking through a box that was probably as wide as him, and then out the other side, I guess, and the snap a light, and the picture would be produced however they did it back then. I am seeing something very similar. So when Malcolm passed, he immediately went into this, what I'm being shown as is a box, okay? So it is a box, and he is sitting there, and it's not really a big room, and he is putting a nickel in this machine and then doing this, like winding the movie. As I'm watching the movie, I'm looking to watch this movie. The background is sepia. There's no color. So there's no energy to it. It's kind of that sepia color, that whatever that is. And I'm seeing a man walk across the beach, and immediately I'm watching him watch this man walk across the beach. Now, I am hearing the words, I don't want to talk. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to talk to you. And then I see the person. I can't really make out who it is, but I believe that it's actually Malcolm watching Malcolm, but in a more moody lit way. That's how it's being shown to me. So there's no vibrance and there's no texture. It's kind of like it's just happening. And as it's happening and he's walking across the beach, his hearing is getting like farther away. So it's almost like I would describe losing one's balance and walking forward into a void. And I equate it weirdly with altitude climbing and falling into a hole while you're climbing up the side of a mountain and you can't hear and everything kind of goes deaf, or you go deaf. This is what I'm feeling. Now, that makes me feel, when I'm looking at the energy, like something came on him. I lost my balance. I moved, I fell, and I can't hear. And immediately I feel a hit to the back of my back, like a sucker punch in the kidney area. That's actually what I get. This is not I don't see anybody on the camera screen, like as I'm looking at it, but I see a sucker punch. I feel like somebody kind of ambushed him from behind and made him fall forward by punching him in the kidney area. So it'll be very interesting to me if he has damage to that part of his body. I don't even know how you tell that, but if that's a thing. And I feel this like, oh my God, I'm falling forward and I can't hear. Like I can't hear anything. So it's like there's noise, and the noise is like a frequency buzzing noise. And I believe that this is the beginning of him starting to pass out of his physical body. I don't think he was dead right then. And I really absolutely don't feel like he drowned. That's not what I'm getting. I feel like they use the ocean as the backdrop, because as I'm watching this movie play out, he's walking beside the water, but he's not in the water. He may have put his feet in the water. He may have gone up to his waist in the water, but he's not in the water to drown. That's just absolutely not what happened. And when you're looking around it, and I'm hearing this buzzing tone, it actually reminds me like when you get those sharp ringing in your ear, I'm feeling that, and like a high-pitched buzzing, but it's like a bunch of bees buzzing around my ears. I can't hear anything. So when he's doing this, I'm watching him watch this, and he's sitting there almost expressionless like this. This is the vision I'm getting of him watching himself on this old time movie, playing it out and then cranking the thing so he can see more. And he keeps going over the part of the ocean. I'm walking over the ocean. I'm moving over that part. And immediately my mind goes over here to my like right side, masculine male, three men wearing hats, almost like those. And again, it's a reference to an old movie, almost like those old detective movies where you've got the guys wearing the hats and they're smoking the cigars. And suddenly I see a bunch of baseball cards. So I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? So I'm seeing like pages and books of baseball cards, and we're trading these cards, and the three like gambling guys playing craps, but it's not, it's baseball cards, and they're playing them. So I'm asking, is there somebody that you went to see who was a baseball player professionally? Because these are cards, I'm assuming these are professional baseball players. Or is there some reason that they're bringing this up? Do you have like a collection that everybody needs to know about that's like worth a lot of money? Or I don't understand. Is there a relative that is a baseball player? I don't get what that is. So my mind is going all over the place with this, and it's actually really rather confusing. And it happened immediately when they said that he drowned. I got confused by that conversation, and my mind went literally everywhere. And I started writing down notes until I was ready to do the video. Now, the baseball players, the people that I'm seeing on the cards, I personally don't recognize them, but these three men are over here and they're smoking cigars and they're like sitting there and they're talking. I can't hear what they're saying, but Malcolm is still focused here on the beach. These guys are doing the baseball cards. And then immediately I go to a conversation with Malcolm. Okay, like I'm not in it. I'm hearing it in my head. A conversation, and he is saying, I don't want to do that. It's very clear I said no, and no means no. I get the impression from the baseball card playing men with the cigars, I get the impression that there's something behind them doing that. So as I'm feeling the energy, I'm then drawn into a building, kind of like a abandoned brick building. I don't know, or something like that. And I'm going inside the door and it looks pretty run down. I really don't want to be there. I don't want to feel the energy. But as I walk in, I step into a room and I've got to remove all of my clothes. This is not me, this is him. I've got to remove all my clothes and I'm in my underwear. I can't go into this room unless I show up that way. And then they pat me down. So they're checking either for wires, mics, pouches. I don't know what they're checking for, but they're checking for something. As I go into that room, I see groups of people lined up. I see, this is so weird. I see people on like the floor, kind of. They're kneeling on like a step thing on the floor and they're looking through something and I can only see their backsides. This is male and female. They have no clothes on, as in just in underwear or like bra and underwear, tighty whities. Anyway, I see that and I look behind it and I see a group of men. Now, these men don't belong here. This is so weird. It's like a puzzle. These men don't belong there. These are men that are, they all wear certain hats the same way, and they're not the baseball card players' hats. They show up in dark gray, like they're grayed out. Okay, so the image flashed in my mind and they're grayed out. So as I'm like going into this feeling, I'm going over here and seeing 6 to 8 men wearing the same kind of hats. And immediately it strikes me like agents, bankers, brokers, something like this. Like they handle money. I see calculators, but I see them all dressed, well, they're in gray, but I'm assuming it's like black suits. They have cufflinks on, they have rings on. So that's showing me, and again, the cufflinks is a reference to a whole other place and time. I mean, do people wear cufflinks? Maybe when they're getting married. Anyway, the cufflinks are, I'm drawn right to that. And so these are like people with money. You just saw the camera move. People with money or people who can acquire things and they dress in a particular way. They are standing there and they are quietly, some of them have like long beards, look a bit different. And I really can't, I don't know who they are, but they're looking and they're looking at all of this that's going on. And I feel Malcolm in his box over here saying, no, I'm not doing this. And I'm going to tell you something that's like striking me as very weird. But as I look at the energy, I feel like somebody out of whatever I've just described wanted Malcolm to be a mule. And I'm going to say like a gang member mule, like the mafia, like the cartel. They wanted him to do something and he wasn't going to do that. I also feel like there was a trick that lured him to Costa Rica. It wasn't as described. Now, when I look at the people responsible, I get an older woman. And this older woman, she likes to manipulate energy. So when we manipulate energy, we call that a form of, I guess, spell casting. I want to make you do something I know you don't want to do. So what can I make you do and how do I do it? Well, first of all, I'm going to get you off balance. I think that's a reference to the beach. I'm going to get you off balance. So you're going to go over there and it's going to be hard for you to regain your steps, your balance, because I kind of pushed you and now you can't hear and now you don't know what's right. This is the first thing. And by the way, with the way the ears are, I feel like, I don't know, somebody like Mickey'd him, roofied him, put something in his eggs. I don't know. Like It doesn't feel right. Like he feels upset in the solar plexus area. They're pulling on that area. It's a very, he's getting, yes, you're getting that right. I can feel him. The room gets cold, but it's a very weird feeling just above your belly button, like solar plexus area, that I'm getting from that. Like also stomach upset, but they're pulling on the energy from there. They're wanting to pull him out. He's not playing ball. That's a funny reference. So I'm feeling like he was asked to be a drug mule or something along those lines. And it's really interesting because this man, even though he was on camera, on TV, many hit shows, podcasts, about to do whatever he was about to do. And that brings me to the next thing I picked up on. He was not easily bought and sold. Okay, that was the conflict that went on from past generations to this generations. Not easily bought and sold, all right? So this he didn't want to do. And I do feel there's a setup in his inner circle. So he was definitely pulled out of his focus, which was, now this is interesting. So what I see, the next thing I see, I have been all over the place with this. The next thing I see is, and I'll just say it, those notebooks, and I don't have one on my table, but those notebooks you get at like the dollar store for your kids and you send them back to school. Typical, just little 90-cent notebook. He's got this in his hand. He shows me pages, and on the pages are just pages of names, okay? And one name stands out, like really, like is highlit and comes close to my eye range, if that makes sense. So it's, and I can't get it out of my head, and it makes no sense to me. I have no fucking idea. I literally do not know why I keep getting this. And it's making me a bit nutty because I don't even know if these two actually had a connection in life. I mean, maybe they met each other at some point. But I am literally talking about the initials QT. That's a director whose name pops out of this book at me like it's lit up and gets bigger and moves towards my face. So that name is circled and it moves closer to me. And I'm like, what the hell does he have to do with it? I'm not saying his name on here, but the initials are Q and T. And I'm like, first name Q, last name T, I believe. I hope I can spell that in my head. But that's the name I'm seeing. I know who it is, and he's had big blockbuster movies. He's known as really quirky and weird, and I don't think we've heard much from him recently, but he is a director, and he's higher echelon director, and he's responsible for bringing some old time actors out and giving them a career again, or hiring them in his movies when maybe their careers weren't going. But his name pops out like lightning to me, okay? Just like whoosh, like this. So I believe Malcolm was in the middle of a project with these names in the book, whatever these names are, that he's handwritten, by the way. This is not typed. This is something he carried with him. So these names are handwritten, and there's a project connected to it because I see a camera, I see a film, I see a microphone, and I know that he was interviewing people in this, that he wrote down these names. And for some reason, that name comes out so strong. So it is my belief that that particular director has something that's going to hit him publicly soon. And I'm not sure what it is, but I know that they put tape over Malcolm's mouth, and they did not want him to do this, okay? Because his mouth is taped now as I'm saying this. I didn't get that before, but I know it now because I can see it in my head as I'm talking. So the mouth is taped. So they did not want him doing this. That's another component of what he was doing. And if he is going to do this, we want a piece of this, and we want it to go this way, which then takes the creative, it puts creative bias on it, meaning you're not free to create it the way that you want to create it because you've got these people taping your mouth until you speak it the way they want you to. And then immediately when I say speak it, I go to a freaking speakeasy. Again, a 20s reference. And no, I wasn't alive in the 20s that I'm aware of. Anyway, it's a speakeasy. So I am seeing that Malcolm was involved, and I'm just going to word it like this. What is a speakeasy? He's very creative in how he shows things. Like he's got a textured, flavored, intuitive vocabulary while trying to push things so that psychic types can pick it up. It's very creative and very interesting. Now, let's look at what a speakeasy is. A speakeasy is where people went to smoke and drink and sing and dance and long pearl necklaces and 20s flappers outfits, and they could do drugs, and alcohol was prohibition, and we went in there and we did this. So this kind of shows me that Malcolm was doing something on the underground level, underneath, hidden. And again, speakeasies are drugs, alcohol, entertainment, singers, dancers, all of that type of thing, gambling, all kinds of things that you couldn't do in the as above, so below. You couldn't do up on the street level because you would get arrested or the authorities. He was doing something like this. I feel it's a creative project, and I feel it was coming into tangibility, and that's why he was being targeted. I also see the older female over here doing the magic manipulation, and she is wanting the money, wanting the focus. I want this, I want that. Then there's yet another component, and I'm positive of this. I feel like, in this, I mean this with no disrespect, I feel like Malcolm was reconsidering his life and his choices. And I feel like he may have wanted more independence in his relationships. So I feel like he was going down that kind of a road. Like, I need to go off on my own. At the same time, I'm seeing him really going into a time in his life where he's making a lot of money and he's able to focus differently. And he's really creatively going to come to stride with what needs to be said. I need to say it. And so, of course, he had to end up dead. And that is really what I'm saying. Of course, he had to end up dead because he had something that was important that he wanted to structure, create, and present. But again, it's underneath in the speakeasy. So, and all of these references to that time frame. And he's still watching and can't believe how he ended up on the beach. I feel like they made up stories and continued to make up stories. And I feel like the Red Cross, that was a lie. I know they said the Red Cross was there, and maybe they were, but the reason that he died is not drowning. I don't feel drowning. Now, he is a Cancer rising with a Pisces moon. However, I don't feel drowning. That is not what happened. I feel, honestly, like they wanted to make him a mule. Somebody wanted to make him a mule. I have no idea what these baseball cards are, or how that's connected to his family, his lineage, his history, or the family he married into, or their relatives' history or lineage. I don't know. But it's like super strong. And here's another thought on that as I'm getting just chills up. I'm being directed. So as I'm looking at him and they want him to be a mule, what other things do they mule? People. They mule people. I'm thinking they wanted him to be involved with product, leaving one country into another country because of who he was. And I think they wanted to hijack his creative project to use it for their things rather than him just go along his merry way and do his stuff the way he was doing it. This is what it feels like to me. I do not know what goes on in Costa Rica. I have no idea what happens there. I don't understand what happens there. I do know that this man did not walk into an ocean where it says, you know, riptide danger, no lifeguard on. I think I'll just go swimming because I'm here with my daughter. Let me kill myself. That's not what happened. He didn't do that. He didn't accidentally do that. That's not what happened. The ocean was used as a backdrop for his death. The ocean was used as a backdrop. And that's actually what I feel happened. So we used it. We made it. It's plausible. It sounds like it could happen. Sure, it could happen. The energy around Malcolm's passing is not one of heavy-weighted drowning. My lungs didn't fill up. I didn't feel that like being dragged down and then released feeling that I have felt with people who've drowned. It didn't feel like that to me. I feel like they used the beach as an opportunity, a plausible one, for their actions. And I feel, just in conclusion, I feel like Malcolm's death was connected to almost akin of being jumped into a gang and not wanting to do what they wanted you to do and not having any recourse around him, being able to let go of that, like to release himself from having to deal with that. It seems as though he was being put into positions against his will because he was about to really uncover something. That notebook, I'm going to uncover it. That director's name there. So he was doing either some kind of a documentary or some kind of a film to point this out. Like, it's way too coincidental and it's too odd a connection. It's like, that doesn't even make sense to me. I don't even know what that connection is. So when I'm looking at it, there's so many pieces, and then there's people who are betraying him. Now, what is a Cancer rising looking for? A Cancer rising is looking for family first, even if they're born into a family that is a wonderful family. Now, remember, Leo sun, loss of father, as in the father is not as prominent, but Cancer rising means I'm looking for family. Now, maybe this is because he spent his whole childhood on camera and didn't really have the family or had different versions of family, but he's easily going to be led astray by the guise of family. Do you see what I'm saying? So if somebody wants to control and contain, they're going to come in as an opportunity to connect like a family. That's what I'm saying. And I feel like that would be the one weakness or his Achilles heel that he had. But he is still in a processing mode. There are people on the other side. A lot of his family's on the other side. This is not unusual when you hit to be your 50s. But it's like the little room that he's in and he's watching the film, there's more people coming to watch this. And it's like, whoa. And they're all kind of just like frozen in time like this, looking at it. So there's not a lot of animation. So I feel just at the moment, and again, time is so hard to explain on the other side because it's not like our time here. It seems like his soul would have popped on out and gone because it's been 2 weeks or whatever. No, he's processing and people are processing with him. And I feel like this was a setup. I feel like it was a setup. This was not intentional. This was not his natural time of death. Obviously, if he ends up dead, it's his one window of death. We have different opportunities, but did somebody else's path intercede with your path and then force you in a position, force you to make a move you don't want to make? That's like a chess move thing there. So strange. Anyway, this is my first video on Malcolm Jamal Warner. And once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.